Semi-structured interviews. Everybody just assumes that you're going to know what they are if you're a PhD student doing a qualitative study. But let's rewind a bit and go back to basics, because we don't often do that in PhD land. In this video, I'm going to explain what semi-structured interviews are, how they're different from structured and unstructured interviews, and I'll be giving you some tips and some advice in case you want to use them in your own study. If we've not met before, hi, I'm Dr. Elizabeth Yardley, and I help PhD students get out of their own way and finish their doctorates. Qualitative research methods are a big part of what I teach. And semi-structured interviews are one of my favourite qualitative methods because, full disclosure, I've used them a lot in my own research. And they're just so useful. So let's get into it. Let's start simple, okay? So at their core, semi-structured interviews are a qualitative data collection method. Think of it like this. You're having a conversation with somebody because you really want to explore their perspectives and their experiences. You prepare some open-ended questions ahead of time, like what are your thoughts on balancing study with work? Or what do you think about this service and the way it operates? But you're free to follow any interesting leads as they come up in that conversation. Sometimes you'll go off script, you'll ski a little bit off-piste to explore something that your participants said that you haven't anticipated, that you haven't expected, but you've thought, that's interesting. Let's have a closer look. That is perfectly fine in semi-structured interviews. That is part of the process. And it's that balance between structure on the one hand and spontaneity on the other that makes semi-structured interviews so valuable. You're trying to understand people's experiences from their perspective. You're not interested in testing hypotheses or generating numbers. You've got a set of topics and a set of questions that you want to cover, but you can allow that conversation to flow naturally. You listen, you follow up on what your participants say, and you explore unexpected but relevant things. And that's why semi-structured interviews are so popular in the social sciences. They are a really flexible tool that let you dig deep without losing focus. So how do semi-structured interviews compare to other types of interview, like structured or unstructured? Let's take a look. If interviews were on a spectrum, structured would be at one end, unstructured would be at another, and semi-structured would be bang in the middle. And here's a nice little table to help you see the differences. Firstly, in terms of structure, starting with structured interviews, these follow a fixed set of questions. You ask everybody exactly the same thing, in the same way, and in the same order. There is no room to go off script. Next are semi-structured interviews. You've still got open-ended questions that guide you, but there's flexibility. You can change the order, you can rephrase questions, you can dig deeper if something interesting comes up. And at the other end of the scale are unstructured interviews. These are completely open. There's no set structure, and you let the conversation flow naturally based on what the participant wants to talk about. So you might start the interview off by saying, tell me more about this. Tell me the story of how you did that. In relation to question order, in structured interviews, you stick to a standard wording and question order. It's all about consistency and standardization. In semi-structured interviews, you can rephrase or reorder the questions as you need to. It's more conversational and you're free to go where that conversation takes you. In unstructured interviews, there might be no predetermined questions at all. You might start with a topic or a prompt and just see what emerges. In terms of research type, structured interviews are often used in quantitative research, so think surveys or market research when you're collecting standardized data. Semi-structured interviews are more common in qualitative research, where you're looking for depth and richness and personal perspectives. Unstructured interviews often show up in ethnographic studies or narrative research, where you're exploring somebody's life story or somebody's lived experiences in detail. In relation to probing, with structured interviews, there is little or no room for probing. If a participant gives a short answer, you've just got to move on to the next question. In semi-structured interviews, you're actively encouraged to probe, to ask follow-ups and explore what people are saying in more depth. And with unstructured interviews, the participant is often the one that's leading the discussion, and you're following their train of thought. There is plenty of space for deep exploration in this kind of interview. Looking at examples, a good example of a structured interview would be a market research survey, where, as I said earlier, consistency and standardisation are key. So you might be looking at somebody's preferences for a particular type of cleaning product, asking them about frequency of use or satisfaction with the product. A classic semi-structured interview might be interviewing students about their experiences of a new online learning platform. So you'll have really clear things that you want to ask them about, but there'll be room for them to go off topic and to highlight things that perhaps you hadn't anticipated before. Unstructured interviews are often used in things like life history studies. You might sit down with somebody and just say, "Tell me your story," and they take it from there. Before we get on to the next part of the video, I want to hear from you in the comments. Are you using semi-structured interviews? Are you thinking about using semi-structured interviews? If you're considering using semi-structured interviews and you're not sure, you've got a few questions, drop the questions in the comments. And if you are a seasoned pro when it comes to the semi-structured interview, what do you wish somebody would have told you before you started doing them? A golden little nugget of advice that you can share with our community. Get typing. And as always, tell me about what you're studying, who you're studying. I always love finding out about all the fascinating things that you're all researching. And you might find that there's somebody down there in the comments section researching a similar thing to what you're researching. So you can have a wee chat about that. So get in those comments. In semi-structured interviews, you might use something called an interview guide. It's not a script, it's a roadmap. It keeps you focused, it keeps you on track, but it allows you to take some detours. So you'll have in your interview guide the topics that you want to talk about. So you're not going to lose focus. But it's not a script that you've got to follow word for word. You're free to ask follow-up questions to explore new ideas and things that come up. And go deeper when it comes to those interesting areas. Even if you hadn't anticipated them, if you hadn't planned in advance for how you'd handle this particular topic emerging. And within your interview guide, you might want to include some different types of question. For example, introducing questions to start the conversation. So, can you tell me about your experience of? Follow-up questions to encourage people to elaborate. So, could you say more about that? Probing questions to help clarify meanings. What do you mean by? Specifying questions asking for concrete details. So, what did you do then? Direct questions to address specific topics. So, did you feel supported by your manager? Indirect questions to explore general views. How do people usually respond to? Structuring questions to move the conversation on. Let's talk about your experiences with. Silence to give space to think and reflect. And seriously, silence is your friend. And I know it's awkward, but embrace it. Don't feel the need to fill every gap in the discussion. Interpreting questions to check your understanding. So, are you saying that? Using a combination of these will help keep your interview flowing. It will help participants open up and it will get you the data that you want and need. And whilst semi-structured interviews are very flexible, very powerful, they do come with a few challenges. But they're completely manageable with a bit of planning and a bit of awareness. Here's a breakdown of the common hurdles and how to handle them. The challenge of staying on topic. Use your interview guide as your roadmap here. It is very easy for the conversation to drift in a semi-structured interview, especially if your participant is somebody who's very animated, very passionate, very talkative. And that's a good thing. But if you find it veering way off course, it's okay to gently bring the conversation back. Try phrases like, "That's really interesting. Can I just bring us back to that topic for a moment?" And this brings the focus back to that topic without shutting the participant down. Managing time can be another challenge. Be time aware but flexible. Interviews can easily run over time, especially when you're really getting into it with someone. So keep an eye on the clock, but don't rush your participant. And a really good tip is to build buffer time in around your interviews. Don't schedule them really tightly back to back. Don't arrange an interview on a day where you absolutely have to be somewhere within a couple of hours of that interview finishing. Give yourself a bit of breathing space in case the interview runs over or if you just need a bit of space afterwards. And you probably will. You'll probably need to go and take yourself off for a tea or a coffee because semi-structured interviews can be quite intense. Handling difficult or sensitive topics can be another challenge. Your participants may very well be talking about emotionally charged things. So be calm, be empathetic. Let participants know that they can take a break, that they can completely skip a question if they want to. Phrases like, take your time, there's no rush, or we can move on if you prefer, or we can come back to this later. They can make all the difference. Data overload is another one. Plan for your transcription and your analysis because believe me, these things take time. Semi-structured interviews will generate lots of really rich, detailed data, which is great for your research. But it can also be massively overwhelming. So make sure that you factor in realistic timeframes for transcription, for coding, for analysis. So really pace yourself with this. And a lot of students recently have talked to me about the idea of using transcription software, about the idea of just having that be automatically generated for them. And yeah, I feel a bit weird about that. Firstly, there's the ethical dimension. Okay, so if you have somebody's words that you've recorded in an interview and you are uploading that to a piece of software to transcribe for you, that introduces some ethical issues. Do you have permission to use their data in that way? Is their data safe? Is that data secure when you wave goodbye to it, when you upload it to whatever piece of software you're using? But also, I would say it can be really, really valuable to transcribe your own interviews, to actually sit down and type them out yourself, because I think that gets you much closer to your data than if you are just reading through a transcript that's been automatically generated by a piece of software. As you are going through the process of typing up that interview, you're going to make connections in your mind. You're going to see concepts and ideas and issues emerge that you would not have seen otherwise, that would not be immediately apparent to you just through reading through a transcript that something else has generated for you. So I would say, please, please, please transcribe your own interviews. Yes, it's going to take you a lot of time, but the stuff that you will get from that process of transcription itself, it's going to get you out of the starting blocks with your analysis. And if you're just starting out with semi-structured interviews, don't worry. It gets easier with practice, it really does. And if you're thinking about using semi-structured interviews, or if you're in the process of using them at the moment, popping up on your screen right now is another video that you're going to find really helpful because it's going to help you address one of the toughest dilemmas that you will have as a researcher when you're actually writing up that research. So go and check that out. I'll see you in there.